решим. Просто я выведу на экран эту штуку. Так, сейчас Алексей, посмотрим.
А вы камеру не сможете опустить, чтобы меня
насколько будет плохо?
Супер, ну тогда это тоже как бы мод, да, я сижу вот здесь и что-то вещаю.
Просто вам нужно больше пространства.
Да. Типа пока не выполняют задание, чтобы не маячить перед экраном, я буду стоять за одной из меня.
Просто делайте, что хотите, мы решим. Просто я выведу на экран эту штуку. Так, сейчас Алексей.
Hi everyone, and thank you very much for joining in. I know it is summer. I know you probably have totally different plans for your evenings during the summer, and to some extent I'm sorry about bothering you with this workshop now in August. But on the other hand, my colleagues at Учебник and I thought, when else are you going to have time for more than one webinar? Hi everyone, and we thought that probably the end, when we know it is summer, I know you probably have totally different. We thought that the end of August is evening, the ideal time, and to some extent I'm sorry about like a course, workshop now in August. But on the other hand, my colleagues at the Учебник and I thought, when else are you going to have time for more than one webinar? Hi everyone, and we thought that probably the end, when we know it is summer, I know you probably have totally different. We thought that the end of August is evening, the ideal time, and to some extent I'm sorry like a course, workshop now in August. But on the other hand, my colleagues at the Учебник and I thought, when else are you going to have time for more than one webinar? Hi everyone, and we thought that probably the end, when we know it is summer, I know you probably have totally different. We thought that the end of August is evening, the ideal time, and to some extent I'm sorry like a course, workshop now in August. But on the other hand, my colleagues at the Учебник and I thought, when else are you going to have time for more than one webinar? Hi everyone, and we thought that probably the end, when we know it is summer, I know you probably have totally different. We thought that the end of August is evening, the ideal time, and to some extent I'm sorry like a workshop now in August. But on the other hand, my colleagues at the Учебник and I thought, when else are you going to have time for more than one webinar? Hi everyone, and we thought that probably the end, when we know it is summer, I know you probably have totally different. We thought that the end of August is evening, the ideal time, and to some extent I'm sorry like a workshop now in August. But on the other hand, my colleagues at the Учителей and I, when else are you going to have time for more than one webinar? Hi everyone, and we thought that probably the end, when we know it is summer, I know you probably have it. We thought that the end of August is evening, the ideal time, and to some extent I'm sorry like a workshop now. But on the other hand, my colleagues at the Учителей and I, when else are you going to have time for more than one webinar? Hi everyone, and we thought that probably the end, when we know it is summer, I know you probably have it. We thought that the end of August is evening, the ideal time, and to some extent I'm sorry like
And then after that, when I started teaching,
but on the other hand, my colleagues at the Учителей
is the thing that now some of you believe
do they really need to be able to describe the latest developments in movies and do reviews and develop reviews of these movies in English, or other more important things? But on the other hand, and we discovered later, observing teachers work in the field, recording lessons, transcribing lessons, there are actually quite a few things that education, teacher education in this country doesn't focus on. And not only in this country, this is happening pretty much all around the world. One thing that I can tell you is that we have English for specific purposes and exams in business English, in medical English, in aviation English. One area of English for which we do not currently have an exam is teacher's English. I couldn't find an international qualification that would focus on teacher's English. You might say that yes, there is CELTA. CELTA is a methodology exam, not an English language exam. So we couldn't find an exam that would certify and say yes, those teachers really have the necessary language knowledge and language skills to be able to teach the language.
You might say that people in here are saying that they cannot hear me well. We probably need to fix something. Do we still have this problem? Don't worry, people, I'll start over again. Can you hear me now? I'm talking. Can you hear me now? I'm talking, check, check. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. 1, 2, 3, eyes on me. 1, 2, eyes on you. Can you hear me well now? Or are we still experiencing the same technical problem? Is it better now? Hey! Great.
Amazing. Okay, guys, for you, I'll start all over again. People have already heard that. Forget about that. What I was saying is that this is another effort to have you guys focus on your communication in your professional field in English language teaching. And I was saying that I am sorry about bothering you with this in August when most people have vacations. But I thought that this is probably the only moment of time when we can find some time to invest into ourselves and develop in the areas that are so important to me personally, because at Moscow University, where I work as a lecturer, my research group does research into how language teachers use language in the classroom and outside the classroom. We are doing this because we believe that through improvement of teacher-student communication and through more focus on this communication, we can achieve higher results. So what we do, we observe a lot of teaching, we record lessons, we transcribe lessons, we try to figure out interaction patterns happening between students and teachers. And I also said in this first bit that you guys were not able to hear well, that this interest comes from my personal experience because I received my education, part of my education here in Russia at Moscow University, another part at Hokkaido University in Japan in an international program. And having graduated from those two universities, I was able to talk about culture for hours, intercultural communication, linguistics. These were the contexts and the discourses where I felt very confident. On the other hand, at the same time, I was not completely sure whether it's open your books to page 5, on page 5, at page 5. I was not sure how to address my students when I first come into the classroom, what register I should choose. Those were the areas that were not part of my education. And when I started teaching English to future teachers of English myself at Moscow University, I decided that maybe we can do something about that problem. Maybe we can look at how teachers in the field, teachers like you, interact with their students and learn from that. Maybe we can later on look at how native speaking teachers use English when they communicate with their students and learn from that as well. And by throwing this bridge and by focusing and discussing what kind of communication we want in the English language classroom, maybe we can develop and maybe we can make the whole process more enjoyable for ourselves, for our students, and more efficient at the end of the day, because as we know from research, our confidence as teachers and our enjoyment of the process has a direct effect on the acquisition of new knowledge and skills by the students. So this is the first webinar. It's called Teacher-Student Interaction in the Classroom. That's what we're going to talk about today. But this is part of a larger training course, training marathon, which you are going to experience during the next few days, where we are going to talk about many different things. And among them, task rubrics, among them discipline and classroom management, designing different activities for students, This will be a course that would also look at written corrective feedback, how we assess students' work, and what kind of comments we can provide them with. I will be doing it together with a colleague from the Higher School of Economics University, who will be joining in a little later in about a week. So stay with us, and for every webinar that you manage to attend, I'll give you a star. So this is the first star, and at the end of this marathon you can become a 6-star teacher. If you attend every webinar, at the end of the webinar you will receive a star from me. Now why do we have it in English? That might be a question. Like, I mean, probably the absolute majority of you guys are Russian. I am Russian, and I could have done it in Russian. Why are we doing this in English? And if we put it a little more broadly, why at all do we need to use English in the classroom? We are mainly teaching to the native speakers of Russian. And probably there would be a point in explaining most of the stuff to them in Russian and only switching to English when they need to repeat a new word or a new phrase. Why are we doing this in English? And I would like to invite, as this is an online workshop, you know, if we decided to do the webinar format, you would pretty much have me talking from a desk and lecturing on something. I also have webinars like that, check that out, also with Rosu Chepnik. But later on we decided, no, we don't like that format, we want something more interactive. But for this to be interactive, guys, you must participate. Otherwise I'll feel lonely, I'll be lecturing for 45 minutes. You guys will most likely fall asleep and find something more fun to watch on YouTube. Or some other platform that you are using at the moment. So the first question that I would like to address to you: why do we use English in the classroom? And why do we try using as much, and why do we try to use as much English as we can in the classroom? What is the reason? What are the reasons for doing so? And this is a question, and I'll be waiting for your answers, and then I will be scribbling down your answers in here. We are doing this in English because we want to use English in the classroom. So Tatiana, thank you very much for this answer. Yes, the reason I am speaking English right now, which is a challenge, guys, you can imagine. I'm talking to a camera right now. Everything I'm saying is video recorded. If I make a mistake right now, this will stay with me forever. This will influence my entire career. People will be pointing fingers at me and saying, like, this is the guy who is an English language teacher and who made a mistake online. So, a huge stress for me, right? The reason I'm doing this in English is because I want you guys to know that it's okay to make mistakes as long as you work on them. And this training is an effort for us all to work on some of the errors that we might have. But why do we use English in the classroom? To improve speaking, to practice. I like this answer. I'll be writing onto the whiteboard. I have a whiteboard in here, so what's the point of having a whiteboard if you can't write on it? It's very simple, you know, you just click in here and then you can start writing. Erasing things is way more of a challenge. So, practice. We do use English in the classroom because this provides practice for our students. That is the main reason. Because otherwise, I'm trying to find out who said practice, because I agree with this person a lot. That was Ulysses. Yes, it's like, you know, you go to the gym. You decided to take up a course in the gym. You come to the gym and there is a treadmill where you're just about to start running. But instead of starting doing the exercise, the trainer tells you about how this exercise is actually performed, and then tells you about all the benefits of the exercise. And then at the end of the training, you get like 5 minutes to work out. Are you going to reach your goal this way? Are you going to improve physically this way? No, I'm afraid you aren't. Same thing happening here. If you never practice the language is a skill to a large extent, where knowledge must be transferred into a skill. So if you don't practice, you're never gonna improve. You're never gonna be able. You are going to improve. No, you are going to improve, but you are highly unlikely to be able to use the language anywhere. And this throws a bridge to the English language education back in the Soviet era. Because one of the things there was that people were practically unable to communicate in the language. And school was the only community where they could do this. Another thing is that the whole goal of education in English was not communication, right? The Soviet Union didn't want its citizens to go to the US or the UK or South Africa and communicate with native speakers in there. No, that was not the goal. So that is why we did not use much of communicative approach in the Soviet Union, even though even back then there were schools where English was used as a language of instruction. Now things have changed. Now everybody can travel. English, and with increased mobility of people all around the world, people do travel. And more importantly, I mean, like me, you might be not so confident in your pronunciation or in your language, and it's okay. But an argument for using language in the classroom, even if you are not so certain, is that when they go out into the wide world, chances are they are not going to meet only only native-speaking English speakers. No, they are not only going to meet Americans or people from Britain. No, they are going to communicate with the Chinese, the Japanese, the Indian, the speakers of Indian English, Japanese English, Chinese English. They must be prepared. So yes, there is a point in using English for it. To create language environment, create an environment. Environment is a horrifically difficult word to spell. Environment. Yeah, we do it for that reason as well. Because when in some places this is the only place where in some cities, towns and villages, the English language classroom is the only place where this environment can be created. It cannot be created elsewhere. So if you teach in a small town or if you teach in a village, remember that probably your classroom is the only place for the students where they can experience an English-speaking environment. And another point, so this was the point by S. Brown. Another point made somewhere by some of you guys was to help them understand the language. Let me find out who told that. To organize the environment close to native speakers, that's pretty much down the same lines. Who said to make students listen and think in English, which is a slightly different point. I'll comment on this as well. Ludmila, thank you very much for mentioning this. Somebody, guys, sorry, I can't find the person right now. But somebody at the very beginning of this conversation said, yeah, get used, Weird Crandall. Have I just said it in English? All right, Weird Crandall, you were right. Get used to English language, to the English speech. Yes, that's also one of the reasons, because when they travel to Thailand or wherever they travel, people are not going to, it's highly unlikely that people are going to translate everything for them into the Russian language. People are going to use gestures, people are going to use facial expressions, visual symbols to help their message come through, but they are not going to translate things all the time. So yes, this way they get used to understanding things in English. And another point which was made by a lot of people, by Ludmila, for example, and later on by Natalia, for better fluency. Because if I formulate every sentence in English, if I formulate each sentence in Russian and then translate it into the English language, then first of all, I have a huge cognitive task that I'm performing, and this reduces fluency because it takes more time to focus. And it needs a larger attention resource. Another thing is that concepts in different languages are not identical. I mean, it's easy to explain this using the example that my teacher, my university professor, who opened my eyes in this area, used with house, home, and dom, which are which are different. Just the neither house nor home are full equivalents of the Russian dom. And this creates a lot of interference. The university professor I'm referring to right now is Professor Terminasova, the former dean of the Faculty of Foreign Languages and Area Studies at Moscow University. She said that languages are practically different cultural systems that work inside our general worldview. Another thing to consider here is that even with the word that can be translated this way, like directly, let's say яблоко and apple. You'd say, yeah, full equivalence, яблоко, apple. But if I close my eyes right now and imagine an apple, the image that I get is like this big red and yellow, red delicious apple, right? Like perfectly rounded, big, sold in a shop, and probably it would cost more than a regular яблоко. But when I close my eyes and think about яблоко, the image that I get is like this tiny, not tiny, medium-sized or small greenish apple under an apple tree down in my dacha. That's the image that I get. And these are two absolutely different images of the thing. And it's important that when we communicate with somebody who uses English, we're talking about the same concept. And moving further, apple in English is also linked in our connotations. In our mind, it's linked to the company, Apple. Is it? Yeah. Can show you here. Sorry, this was not done for promotional purposes. Personally, I use a different kind of equipment that I'm not going to promote now either. So yeah, what I was saying is that it has different connotations, and in the Russian language, we'd probably think about the dance, right? That is also pretty much the same word. They are different. Languages are different cultural systems, but they are linked. So another mistake is to say that it's completely not linked. It's a crime to use any Russian in an English language lesson. No, it's not. And the competence, the communicative competence that we have, it's multilingual, it's interlingual, where we combine all the language knowledge that we have in different languages. My father-in-law goes to Montenegro every summer, and he speaks like very tiny little English, Because he goes to Montenegro every summer, he has already acquired some Serbian, and he can also use some Russian. Now, when he communicates with people at the shop, he uses all of those languages to help his message come through. And if we speak about school children, they should be able to do this. They should be able to use all of their language resource to help them communicate their message. They can use the skills that they have already acquired, for example, the learning skills that they have already acquired in the Russian language, in the English language, right? And vice versa. Some things like feedback or emotional or EQ, emotional competences that are sometimes very poorly developed in the Russian language, they are transferred from the English language. Because in the English language, we do learn to name emotions from the very beginning. We do learn to name emotions from the 2nd grade or the 3rd grade, and to be able to define the emotion that we are experiencing at the moment. This does not always happen in the English language lesson, unfortunately. Sorry guys, I will take brief moments to look through your notes. Today we are using a slightly different system of communication because before that there were people who helped me through the comments. And that's why I only received the comments that were selected so that I don't get all of the chat messages and don't get distracted. Today we decided to do it in a slightly different way so that we can communicate in a more direct fashion. Be prepared, right, for psychological reasons, so that they have experience of communicating in a foreign language. Also, so that they know that it's okay not to understand 100% of what's being said. Because if you interpret everything you say, you develop a habit that it's not okay to not be able to understand the whole text. And with this kind of perfectionism, I know a lot of people have this kind of perfectionism. Like, you know, they go into a bus in Europe with their child, and they want their child to read an ad in the bus or an announcement to be able to understand the announcement. If the child is unable to interpret it right away, to translate it right away with 100% precision, they say, no, what are you studying in your English class, right? No, it's okay not to be able to understand 100%, but and it is important to be able to it's important to be able to come over the difficulties that people might experience while communicating in the language. And unless we do it in the classroom, it's just not gonna happen. Okay, so quite a few reasons. All right, now I need to do that. And here we go. So yes, as I said, more language input creates more language acquisition. Reason number one. It's more natural and it helps to develop compensatory skills that I was talking about. Less code switching. Code switching is when we switch from English into Russian and from Russian into English, creates less interference. Because I know quite a few people who speak English like they translate every sentence from the Russian language. It's just very hard to understand what they want to say sometimes. It helps to develop fluency, and one more reason that nobody, unfortunately, has pointed out, probably because you guys are very focused on your students, right? It helps to keep your own language fit. Because if you don't use English in the classroom, guys, language is a skill. You are going to forget it. You are going to lose your language competence. It's like with working out in the gym. If you don't work out regularly, you start to lose shape, and that's what happens to all of us, right? That's another reason. We use English in the classroom to keep our own language fit. Now, why? Like, I mean, this is the ideal world, right? You and I, we all believe that it's we must use English in the classroom. But guess what? When my students go into real schools for their teaching placements, what they see there is that most teachers do not use English in the classroom at least 50% of the time. No, what they see very often is that more than 50% of the English language lesson is delivered in the Russian language. Now, why does that happen? And we have several theories about that. Reason number one that we get from the teachers when we ask them is that students don't understand this way. Especially with grammar, students don't understand. And somebody else in here, I'm sorry, I think this was Galina, but I might be wrong about that. Said that we mainly teach them grammar. Why do we? No, that was Julia. That we mainly teach grammar. Julia, I would disagree with this math. I'm sure that you don't believe that it's only important to teach grammar at school, because the time of grammar translation are slowly passing, I'd say, because the grammar translation method was a very important method for the time when people were unable to communicate in the language. Because back then language was mainly taught to develop memory, to develop cognitive skills. Now it's different. Now we teach language for communication. And if you look at exams, don't start throwing tomatoes at me. Right. They are communicatively focused. I mean, yes, you can train your students to write a letter like that. Dear Dmitry, sorry I couldn't get back to you earlier. No, sorry, I missed one line. Thank you for your message. Sorry I couldn't get back to you earlier. Answering your first question, comma, the answer to the first question. Secondly, comma, the answer to the second question. Thirdly, comma, the answer to the third question. I would also like to ask you a few questions. Firstly, the first question. Secondly, the second question. Finally, the third question. Looking forward to hearing from you. Love, Alex. I mean, both you and I, we can teach like that. But this is not the idea that people who originally designed the exam had. The original idea is that we teach our students to write a letter and an email, and that they will be able to write an email or a letter if they ever have to, or a message to their friends who can't communicate with them in the Russian language. So with listening, we do want them to be able to understand a text that is produced in the English language. With reading, we want them to be able to read texts in English. And with speaking, I know it's very far from real-life communication, because it's a large, high-stakes exam, which, by the way, does not mean that this is the only way of teaching English in the Russian in schools in Russia. No, but yeah, it can be far from real-life communication. But if you think about that, what can we teach our students through that? Is it important to be able to ask questions when you want to go to a hotel? Yes. The only difference is, yes, you can use the materials developed for the Russian state exam, or you can go to booking.com with them and formulate those questions first in writing and then in speaking, so that they can ask those questions when they go to a hotel. Next, is it important to be able to describe a photo or share a personal memory of yours with a friend? I believe yes, because that's what we mainly do when we socialize, when we communicate in social situations. We tell each other stories, don't we? And then thirdly, is it important to be able to compare things? And again, I think yes, it is. I'm not saying that this is the only context of speaking that we have. And I'm not saying that grammar and vocabulary are not important. They are. What I'm saying is that modern English language teaching in the Russian Federation, according to the regulating documents and according to what most people who do who are setting the trends in this country are saying, is moving towards communicative language teaching. And communicative language teaching means that we teach language for communication. And that's, by the way, is the general theoretical and overall framework of the workshops that we are going to have. We believe that you guys teach English for communication, just like we do. And that is why interaction is so important for us. So going back to those reasons why people don't use language in the classroom, students don't understand, vocabulary is not sufficient, right? We don't know certain words. And in one of the workshops, I'll show you some classroom objects, and I'll ask you to name them, and we'll see if you guys can do that. We also did that in one of the previous workshops. And to save time, especially if you explain grammar to your students, which is not the only way to teach grammar. Yes, it's less time consuming to explain things in the Russian language. But once again, I'm not saying that Russian may not be used in the classroom. I'm saying that I recommend that you use English most of the time. Personally, if you ask me, I use English 100% of the time with my students of all of the ages. The youngest students that I teach are 1 year old. The older students, well, I can't ask them how old they are, that'd be very impolite. But with all of them, I use English only. That's a way of looking at things. Theoretical grammar is less important for me than the ability to use grammar. Grammar for me is a skill, and I teach it mostly implicitly, mostly in communication, integrating it with vocabulary. Overall, I tend to focus on linguistic knowledge. This doesn't mean that my students are not allowed to use any Russian. No, for different age groups and for different level groups, I have different rules. There are groups where students are not allowed to use the Russian language, mainly older teenagers, where I give them a yellow card when they use the Russian language for the first time during the lesson, and a red card if they do it again. And a red card means that they have to write an essay on the topic, why is it important to use the English language in the classroom? I do the same with my university students, by the way. But with younger students, it's fine. With preschoolers, whatever language they use, if I get a response, or if I at least get elicit a reaction from them, fine, I'm very happy. It's your choice. With students who have a low level, that's, guys, your task. And in one of the workshops, I think in the day after tomorrow, we are going to talk about how you can adapt your language and how you can choose, for example, a greeting, about greetings, that's going to be tomorrow. How you can choose a greeting that's appropriate for the level of your students, so that you grade your language to their level of English. And once again, starting from 1 year olds, it's okay that they don't understand certain elements. You know, for me and you, it's way more important to understand everything, because we have the mental capacity that is called critical thinking. But good news, this capacity appears at puberty. So it appears at the age of 12, 13. Before that, most children are fine with language acquisition. They are fine to acquire language if you teach them that it's fine to not be able to understand everything. But that lies very much in the way you in your personal attitude to not being able to understand something. Now, talking about new vocabulary, can you guys suggest some ways to introduce new vocabulary without switching to the Russian language? Because one of the methods that we can use is translation, right? We can translate things into the Russian language. But can you guys suggest any other ways of introducing new vocabulary in English. Preferably ways that would work with any, because like I attended a workshop myself about, I think it was with Hugh Deller, but I'm not completely sure, about a year ago, where we managed to come up with 20 different ways of introducing vocabulary without switching switching to the student L1. Today I have selected 6 or 7. So let's think. Pictures. Good. Visualization. Pictures, whiteboard, gestures, and mimics. And here, word of advice, if you can bring some real life into your classroom, do that. A real apple works way better than an apple an apple that you can see as a picture. The reason is that a real apple is 3D. You can touch it, you can smell it, so it uses more channels of perception. Definition. Songs, pictures, great guys. I really like how you are participating today. Amazing. Songs, said Anna. Yeah, I really like songs. Examples, as Brown. Thank you for that. Explaining, explanation, definition. Veronica and Veronica and somebody else, and Natalia were thinking in the same direction. Interpreting, context, videos, thank you Anna, thank you Ludmila, thank you Valentina. Games, yes Svetlana. Bringing things, Anna. Synonyms, antonyms, pictures, thank you Victoria. Probably Victoria attended the same workshop that I did. Vladislav said that a smart board is a cool thing. Vladislav, but very challenging, right? If things go wrong, you must always have a plan B. Associations, yes, Tasha. Crossword puzzles, yes, Tatiana. I can't, maybe it can be used as a way to introduce new vocabulary. I mainly use it as a way to practice vocabulary, but maybe you can use it as a way to introduce vocabulary as well. So what else do I have here? I also have Ask Me. That's my usual L1, you know. I also had a training event, a real training event, where I had to persuade the teachers of a certain language center that it's totally okay to be able to teach language without switching into the Russian language. And the way I did it was I taught them some Japanese in the training, because I can speak Japanese as I studied in Japan for some time. And that worked fine, because when you first come and we say, hello, what's your name? My name is Alex. Ask me, what's your name? Or ask me, what is right? The word. Another way. Then context and examples, definition and explanation. That's one of the most challenging ways. Sometimes we ask our students to define a certain word. Usually, examples are a way easier tool for our students to show that they know the word than explaining the word. It's a more challenging cognitive task. Antonyms and synonyms, scales, and that's all of these are all of the tools that I wanted to focus on today. Visualization, not time consuming, is good for nouns, brings real world into the classroom. Check the images in advance. I can tell you a story about how I used visualization. One of my students was delivering a presentation about their favorite athlete, who happened to be Maria Sharapova, the tennis player. And the student forgot his PowerPoint presentation. Now, I wanted to help the student, right? So I would type Maria Sharapova into a search engine in order to get some photos. Now, the photos that I got were completely not the photos that I wanted to show to my students. Check the images in advance. Next slide. Visualization, gestures and mimics. One good thing is about visualization is that it reduces your teacher talking time. It allows students to guess, which makes them more active. It's good for beginners, and it's important for beginners. It often tells better than words. Triggers enthusiasm. Ask me. Ask me is highly communicative because that's how we do it in the real world. It makes the student pronounce the word, and that's a really cool moment when the student is not certain about the word but tries to pronounce it, because this helps them form a concept and use the word later. Because later they are certain that they are using the word better than the first time. And there is a hint of discovery in that. I was unable to pronounce the word, but now I can do that. And it's fun, it's challenging, it's fun, so students tend to enjoy it. Next, context and examples. It's really important to be selective, right? When you give examples and when you explain things, choose words that do not require further explanation. Create demand for the new word. It's like, okay, we are traveling by plane. We come into the airport and there we see, and we want to know where can we check in for our flight. We want to find the right place for our flight. What do we see? And to show timetable, students don't know this word, timetable. Or then you come to the desk, so here is the person, and you want to sit, and you show in the picture next to the window. So how do I ask that, how do I tell this person that I want to sit next to the window? Window seat. Window seat, yes. And what's the opposite of a window seat? So here is window seat, and here is aisle seat. Oh, by the way, guys, what do you prefer? Window seats or aisle seats? Personally, I prefer window seats. Then definition must be short and precise. Don't overuse this time. It's time consuming, as I said. And don't use difficult words in your explanation. Synonyms and antonyms does not require much time, so it's really good. Two things to consider. First, your students must be familiar with the word that you want to use. Second, the second thing is that it can only be used for some words. Not all the words have antonyms and or synonyms. And one word of warning here is that don't try to find complete synonyms or antonyms. That's probably not going to happen. Scaling. Scaling also works for only some types of words where you can show a category. It's good because you can show the whole category, from yawn to oh my god. It's precise, and it helps to develop a certain understanding of a concept in the target language. Now, as I said, workshop. I want you guys to look again at those 6 ways of introducing new vocabulary, and for every one of them I want you to suggest a word that you would introduce using these methods. For example, you can write a good word to introduce during visualization was dough, the word that I had, right? So for dough, 1. For ask me, shirt. Right, I'm wearing a short, so is this a short would be a very easy way to introduce this. Also for grammar, for example, for can or can't, ask me would be a nice way to introduce it. Context examples, definition explanations, antonyms and synonyms, scales. You can write 1 and a word, 2 and a word, 3 and a word, 4 and a word, 5 and a word, 6 and a word. Take a minute, right? Write your answers into the chat. I'll read your answers. Scales is from hot to freezing. For example, we have freezing, then we have cold, then we have okay, then we have warm, and then we have hot. Right? This is a scale from freezing to hot. Natalia, thank you for the question. Whenever you have a question, guys, it's totally fine to ask me. I actually enjoy it because this gives me some interaction with you, which I demand. So, 6 ways of introducing vocabulary. 1, sun. Maria says 1, sun. Yes. Good. I'll probably go and draw a picture of a sun for Marina while you are writing your answers. I'm terribly bad at drawing. Oops. Erase, clear. That's what my students mostly enjoy about me when I start drawing pictures, that I'm so bad at that. It's a black sun. No, we don't want a black sun. It's depressive. I'm still waiting for your answers, guys, by the way. Come on, how can I change the color?
Touch and hold.
Wait. Line color. Yellow. Good. Okay. No, it didn't work. Okay. That's the thing with the whiteboards. Not always going according to your plan. So, sorry, Marina, you'll get a black star from me. Yeah, I see. My artistic skills are way below the standard for English language teachers. So guys, where are your answers? Tell me. Six words for 6 ways of introducing new vocabulary. 2. Dive. Ask me. Dive. Can you dive? Maybe. Are you diving? Yeah. 2. Lips. Where are your lips? Yes. If we're introducing body parts, asking where are your lips? Where is your head? Where we can also practice is and are this way. Where are your eyes? Or are these your lips? No, these are my eyes. Are these your lips? No. These are my ears. Waiting for your answers. That's somebody diving with a scuba on their back. Lips. Context, examples. Probably there is a delay, because I'm more than certain that many of you have already written your answers. So we'll wait for another minute, and if I don't get the answers, I'll show you my answers. Tent for number 5, antonyms and synonyms. Synonyms of tent, tent like a house in the forest, that's closer to explanation. Maybe tola. Yep, good with visualization. Amazing. I agree with Sashok, 3000. Right, guys, you can feel free to add your answers into the chat right now. We have to move forward. That's why I will show you the my answers to the same task. Love, hate, very good for scales, right? Like, love, hate. In order to buy vegetables, you go to the greengrocers. That's yes, context, good. 3, read, yes. We read books. Books, what do we do with books? We read books. Yeah, that's a way to introduce read. Lorry, hockey. Do you play hockey? Yes. On foot, context, yes, very good. Not by bus, not by car. How do I go? On foot. Headache, give a definition. Yes, when your head aches. Good explanation. No, don't do that like that. I would actually use visualization here. Awful nightmare. awful, beautiful, nightmare, nice dream. Yes, we can introduce it this way. Thank you, Vladislav. Ludmila, thank you for your answers. Downtown for ask me, do you live downtown? Airport, yes, can be given in context. Footage for definition, yes, difficult word. Long short, good. Angry, good. Thank you, Ludmila. Thank you, Tatiana. Book ride on food, huge. Oh, wait, Vladislav and Tatiana, you came up with the same word. Amazing. Are you watching together? Cool. Book and write. The other 5 words are different though. Huge for definition. Yes, very, very big, huge. Tiny, huge, good. And seldom, the scale, right? From never to always. Amazing. Right. Switch it off. No. Oh, now it's yellow. Ta-da! This is a very quick sun for all of you who wrote your answers into the chat. Hospital. Good. Okay. Now, can we? I probably need to turn that off now. Right? So the words that I would suggest. Visualization, air conditioning, right? If you have it in the classroom, show it. Ask me what's wrong, right? Asking each other questions like, what's wrong? I have a headache, right? What's wrong? He took my toy. Context examples, I'm exhausted, I'm very tired. Definition, explanation, turbulence, when the plane starts going up and down. 5, rough, antonyms, synonyms, rough, like this wall, or smooth, like the whiteboard. And scales, relaxed, calm word, scared, frightened. And here, once again, probably those of you who are linguists would say, no, Alex, these are not complete antonyms, or they mean different things. Yes, slightly different, but at level B1, you know, guys, totally fine. More things that I would like to talk about today in the second part. Attention getters, that's what I want to revise. Active listening and using various forms of work. So only 3 things left to cover in the last 30 minutes. Attention getters is the way you grab their attention at the beginning. You can watch my previous workshop where I focused on it quite a lot. And in terms of interaction, that's the first interaction that you can have with your students. You come into the classroom, they are running all around, and there you need to do something about that. So of course you can say, guys, or sit down everybody. But that, in terms of interaction in English, is not exactly polite. That's why we can do it differently. And we can do it through call and response. So you come up with a signal, and instead of saying guys, you say something like, okay, if you can hear me, clap once. Everybody who can hear me, clap twice. You introduce it as a game. So it's not just if you can hear me, clap once, if you can hear me, clap twice, if you can hear me, clap 5 times. No, you say, if you can hear me, clap once, if you can hear me, clap 3 times, if you can hear me, clap 0 times, and somebody still claps. Usually, a good attention getter has several elements. One of my favorite attention getters is, if you can hear me, match me. If you can hear me, match me. If you can hear me, match me. Match my hands. You clap, and then you play. You introduce an attention getter as a game. And that game you use later on when you need to discipline your students, because that's how you get their attention. Types of attention getters: clapping, the one that I just shown; chants, I'll show you a few a little later; whisper, noise, and freezing. One of my favorite attention getters is waterfall fingers. I say waterfall fingers, students do this. Shh. I also use it with university students during lectures. An amazing sound. And magic items like this quiet spray. So, guess the ending. 1, 2, 3, eyes on me. I've already used this one. 1, 2, 3, eyes on me. 1, 2, eyes on you. Right? Basic interaction. Teach them this chant, and they will do this in your lessons. Then, oops,
No, there was one more. Here. No, not with the eyes. Yeah, hocus pocus. Hocus pocus. Everybody focus, right? You say hocus pocus, they say everybody focus. And macaroni and cheese, everybody freeze. I used those examples in my previous online workshop about the golden rules of communication, showing that communication in the classroom means interaction. Today, talking about interaction in the classroom, I'm telling you, this is the first interaction, one of the first interactions that you have with your students. And in order to interact with someone, it's really important to get their attention. This is an attention getter. This is a way that helps you get their attention. Now, when you first come into your classroom, probably they will listen to you just because you are the teacher in the classroom and they know this. This is the time to get the rules set. This is the time to introduce an attention getter that you are going to use later on. Do it during your first lessons. Introduce it as a game and then do it during the term. It will change the tone. It will save you a lot of vocal effort. Try it. Another element of interaction is being able to listen. And here I want to talk about active listening. As teachers, we do active listening not only in the classroom, we also do active listening after the lessons, before the lessons, and when communicating with parents, for instance. The thing is that most of us, if we looked at our skills as teachers, we are good at reading. We read a lot of students' work, and we mainly can read and assess students' work. Most of us. We are not bad at speaking. We can speak in the classroom. But when we look at teachers listening, at how good are teachers at listening to their students, what we find out very often is that we aren't. Listening skills for teachers can require active listening. Now, what is active listening? Active listening is being able to focus on your student's message, right? We don't do active listening 100% of the time because sometimes we explain things, right? Sometimes we have a different focus. But especially if you are discussing a problem with your students, especially after the lesson, like, Dmitry, why are you behaving like that? Whenever there is a task like that, or why didn't you write the essay, right? Why is there no essay? Then actually it's good to take some time and listen to the student while the student is explaining why he or she actually did not write the essay. Basic interaction pattern, right? Skills that we can apply there. Paraphrasing. It is important not only to be able to know the strategy itself, but just like I said, for us, if we want to do it in English, it's also important to know the wording for it. That's why in this presentation, I have included the wording that we can use to make sure that we are applying the right active listening strategy. The phrases are here, I'll read them. The first one, you listen to your student and you say, what I'm hearing is that you didn't have a lot of time for your home assignments yesterday. Repeat what the student has just said. Sounds like you are saying that the game was not fun. I'm not sure I'm with you, but are you saying that, right? Confirm. If I'm hearing you correctly, so as you see it, I am picking on you. Or it sounds like what's most important to you is, and here we repeat what student has just said. We make sure that we understand what the student has just said. Another strategy that we can sometimes, and by the way, the same things can be used when we are having a classroom discussion. That's also a way to organize classroom discussion. And by the way, these are also very nice phrases to teach to your students, right? Nice time fillers, right? When they need to build communication with somebody, they can use those phrases too. And you know what? If you use those phrases consistently, they are going to start using those phrases because that's how English language teaching happens. Clarifying. If you don't understand something that your student is saying, try to clarify it. Say something like,
I'm not sure I quite understand. Or do you mean that? Ask them to clarify. Can you say more about something? You have given me a lot of information. Let me see if I got it all. Right? Absolutely cool strategy when you're talking to your students is taking notes, right? And then confirming. And if you have a regular habit of taking notes in your lesson during your interaction with your students, confirming, then whenever you're doing assessment and they make a mistake and you take a pen, they will not stop speaking because they know you have a habit of taking notes. Otherwise, if you only pick your pen or pencil, whenever you need to write down an error they have just made, they will stop speaking as soon as you, many of them at least, will stop speaking or will be disturbed by this fact and will hesitate whenever you grab your pen or pencil. Reflecting. Phrases like, I get the sense that you might be feeling afraid about what might happen if you don't write the test well, right? Trying to name what they're actually experiencing. To me, it sounds as, like you are frustrated about what was said, but I'm wondering if you are also feeling a little hurt by it. That's probably not for beginners, right? More for teenagers. But this expresses emotions, and it's good to teach teenagers words and phrases that can help them express different emotions in good English. It seems like you feel confused and worried when that happened. So you are saying that you were feeling more frightened than angry, right? Naming different emotions while discussing things. By the way, it all would also work in the Russian language if we applied the same strategies while communicating with our students in Russian. One thing that I did with those phrases with my students, I also taught active listening to my students, and I gave them a challenge because they have many different aspects of English and several subjects taught in English. I said, okay, in one of I'm going to give you a challenge. In one of your other classes this week, try and use some of the phrases, and that basically built a group code. They were using those phrases in other classes. That was fun, and they knew that that's like a group code, inner group code that they know and that other people don't know. Summarizing. That's an absolutely crucial skill that, according to our research, not many teachers have. Well, after you have done elicitation or after you have got some students' answers, summarize. Right? Let me summarize what I heard so far. Right? We think that vegetarians are people A, who are crazy, B, who don't like eating meat, C, people who live in Europe, D, people who care about animals, right? Let's see to what extent those ideas are true. So on the one hand, but on the other hand, right, the phrases that we teach our students, right, especially when we do debating, good phrases to use. I think I've heard several things that seem to be important to you. First, second, one more time, third, right? This is a typo. Sorry about this, guys. Right? We do that when we summarize their ideas. We do that when we summarize what has been said. Teachers who do that, because we get to see a lot of lessons, teachers who do that get a totally different interaction in their classroom. Because once your students know that what they are saying is important to you, they start to participate in a completely different way. Do this, and trust me, you will see it, because we have seen it on a number of examples, to come to the conclusion that being heard and being heard for the content of what they are saying is very important to the students. Yeah, these are the strategies. Once again, paraphrasing, summarizing, reflecting. There are, in the presentation that will be available after webinar, there will be a table with roadblocks to active listening and with do's and don'ts of active listening. I'm not going to focus on them right now, yeah, that'd be a waste of time. I think it's quite self-explanatory. You will be able to read it on your own, and then if you have any questions about that, I'll see you in the workshop tomorrow. You can still ask me. And then the final thing is how we get our message through and how we make sure that our students are not too tired during the lesson. And we do it by variation of different perception channels. And here is my question to you. Can you guys name the 3 perception channels in English and spell them correctly? That's another challenge. Name the 3 perception channels in English and spell them correctly. Well, guys, you have Google. Even if you're not sure, just Google the spelling, not the channels. What are the 3 perception channels? Trying to... I will share the presentation with you. Trying to see whether there are any answers about the 3 perception channels. I see that some people are already leaving, so we'll probably have to finish soon. We are going to do it right after I get the answer to this question about the 3 perception channels. Seeing, hearing, and speaking. Visual, auditory. I wanted it to be audio, guys. I used audios for I think 2 years until I found out that it's auditory. Visual and horrific word kinesthetic. That's impossible to spell correctly. That's why I have it on the slide. I would never dare to write it in front of you. This theory has received a lot of criticism. Because some people were saying that if the dominant channel for your students is auditory, use only auditory. If it's kinesthetic, it's kinesthetic. It also divided learners into types. It doesn't work like that. Our brain is well interconnected. We use all the channels all the time. So the more channels you can use, the better your students' understanding is going to be. The more you change, the less tired your students are going to be. This is how it works, right? Change different channels, use different modes, give them a chance to touch things, give them a chance to see things, give them a chance to hear things, work with your voice, and you will have a more productive interaction in your classrooms. Now, a quick look into what we are going to do tomorrow. Tomorrow, we are going to talk about different forms of work in terms of individual, team, group, pair work. I'll also give you phrases that you can use for different modes of work. We will look at some classroom language as well. Now, before we finish, I would invite you to reflect on the most useful things you have learned today. And if you have any questions, please feel free to ask me those questions. I'll still be here for another couple of minutes answering your questions. And before you all go, a big star to you for being able to attend it today, for making it, for watching it, for giving me interaction and feedback. Thank you so much. This star goes to you. If you have any questions, write them into the chat, as well as your reflections about the most useful thing you have learned today, if you are fine with sharing it. Thank you. Something wrong with audio again? Yeah, that's what everybody's saying. We are still online, right? Good. I'll sit down.
Guys, if you still have a minute, it's very useful to reflect. It's very useful to pick up a couple of things, like 3 things that you think, or 1 thing that you think you will try in your classroom before you go. Because this thing will probably stay with you. You're going to forget most of the rest, even though the video and the presentation will be made available to you. But reflection is very important. We're going to talk about different forms of work tomorrow, about classroom management, about discipline in the classroom, and how you can manage it without being too dominant, too authoritarian. Thank you very much for your feedback. Attention getters, good. Thank you, Anna. Thought that attention getters is one of my favorite things. Mac and cheese, everybody freeze. Floor is lava, that's another favorite attention getter of mine. When you say floor is lava, everybody has to sit down and raise their feet. Oh no, please don't show my feet now. Yeah, that's another attention getter. Thank you for your feedback, guys. Yes, Ashok, thank you. But, you know, out of this everything, for yourself, you don't have to write in the chat right now. Try to pinpoint, try to pick 2 or 3 things, because attention is a limited channel. We have to invest it in the things that are most important to us. Explaining vocabulary, good. I'm asking you because also I will tell you more about the thing that you are interested in and less about the thing that you are not so interested in. All different ways of introducing new words. A really good point, Ludmila Galaeva. Because the more ways you use, the less tired your students are. Attention getters for Ludmila, for the other Ludmila. Thank you. Yeah, try it. Choose one attention getter that goes natural with you. You don't have to be shouting if you are not fine shouting, or whispering if you are not okay whispering. Use the way that you think is natural and that you personally like. Okay, guys. Thank you very much for being here with me today. I'll see most of you in the next workshop scheduled for tomorrow. See you and have a very nice evening. Or if you're based in the eastern part of Russia, have a good night's sleep or wherever your plans are. Good night, goodbye, see you soon.